where you have to manually do things, verify it yourself, check these things out to be true. It takes time and effort and energy, and then you have to go file it and sign it, are all issued digitally. And you can program for them to do whatever it is you want them to do. And then that entire transaction executes automatically. And that information, the contract itself, is publicly accessible on the blockchain for anyone to be able to see. So like, let's imagine you're Coachella or Jazz Fest. You want to be able to do a smart contract to sell tickets or membership to your festival. How do you do that? So let's say Coachella wants to sell a 2023 membership pass. Coachella is going to create a smart contract. They're going to set out all the terms of what it means to be able to buy a membership to Coachella. They're going to write all the rules of that smart contract into the computer program itself, right? So if you purchase this ticket, it costs this much. So you have to be able to pay them what they need. They're going to implement KYC, know your customer, right? We won't sell you a ticket if you can't verify your identity. We won't sell you a ticket if we can't verify that we can't sell anything on the blockchain if you're in Iran. We can't sell anything on the blockchain if you're on a terrorist watch list, right? So there are systems and layers of rules you can build into these smart contracts to keep everything secure and to make sure we're not violating SEC rules, finance rules across the board. Then the buyer is going to have a chance digitally to review that contract, the same way you would review a contract in the real world. And then if they agree that they want to buy a pass from Coachella, they're going to log in with a crypto wallet. That crypto wallet is going to, they're going to have to sign the smart contract on the crypto wallet. And they're going to say that I want to buy a pass from Coachella for $500. That transaction is going to then go across the blockchain to Coachella's smart contract. And then the Coachella smart contract has to verify that all the rules they put into the smart contract are taking place. Does this person have KYC? Does this person have enough money in their wallet? Does this person check every box that is written into the smart contract as a whole? So think about contract review in the real world and how long it takes when you're evaluating contracts to be able to determine whether or not someone is able to execute, particularly like in real estate, right? Takes 3-5 days, sometimes, of paperwork. All of this is reviewed instantaneously, within seconds, by a computer algorithm to make a determination as to whether or not we're going to execute that contract. And if all the rules are met, it is transacted, and then the record of that transaction is put on the blockchain for everyone to be able to see. So if the network agrees all conditions are true, the pass is going to automatically be created, the ticket is going to be issued, Coachella is going to get their money. There are other benefits, by the way, as to why a Coachella, a Jazz Fest, anyone doing ticketing may want to do this. So most ticketing systems, for example, do ticketing based on QR codes. And the problem is those QR codes can be photoshopped very easily. They're created one time, right? So if you can Photoshop that QR code, you can pretty much walk into any venue in the world. But if the QR code is instead tied to a crypto wallet, you walk up to Coachella, they're going to say, okay, great, here's your ticket. They're going to scan it. That ticket is going to come back to that person's crypto wallet that's stored on their phone, and they're going to have to verify right then, at that exact moment, they are the owner of that ticket. And if they can't sign it with a crypto wallet address, they won't be able to enter. And so it is preventing fraud, it's preventing copying, and it's verifying that all transactions are real. So Susie, I forgot my fake person buying this ticket, can now enter Coachella by entering her code tied to a private crypto wallet. So if you compare traditional contracts in the legal world, it could take 1 to 3 days, a very manual process. The review of this is done very manually. If it's in real estate, for example, you're going to have to put funds or any type of large purchase into escrow. No offense to who's a lawyer in the room. They can be very expensive. And it's going to require often for certain types of legal considerations, a physical wet signature, right? On the blockchain, something that could take 3 to 5 days is done in minutes. The review of it is done automatically because it's a computer code running the rules of the smart contract. Escrow isn't required because all the protections of why we have escrow are solved by these rules. You no longer, sorry lawyers, need lawyers to be able to do this in most instances, other than reviewing the terms of the contract once. And the signature is digital, and it's verified by you owning a crypto wallet. It's completely disrupting the way that contracts are created. So this is why smart contracts are now being created across all of these categories. It is a better way to do ticketing and to prevent fraud. It is a better way to be able to own collectibles, to be able to trade collectibles, share collectibles. It is changing banking, real estate, supply chain, any industry in the world. So the biggest thing to note here is that smart contracts are still legal contracts. It's just the ability to do more things with them that you put into that computer code itself. So in the world of collectibles, though, smart contracts in the world of art and culture are really important because let me give you an example of some of the things they can do. Who's heard of the starving artist problem? Right? You work your ass off to be able to build your art career. And for the first several years of that career, you're struggling to get by, right? You're just trying to build an audience and you're not able to really benefit from the value of your artwork. You wake up one day, hopefully you have found success, but that 10, 20 years, whatever it was of work you put in, you were struggling to get by and you don't get the benefit, but everyone who bought your artwork really does. With a smart contract though, you can put into the contract a royalty. Not only when you sell the piece of artwork the first time, but every single time that artwork resells forever in perpetuity. So for example, there was an artist that recently created 10,000 editions of her work that she sold for $1 a piece, right? So not a huge campaign, $10,000. But what she did do was put in on the secondary fee that every time it resells, for whatever it resells for, she's going to get 10%. So it's a $10,000 one-time campaign. But when the average value of her artwork went from $1 per NFT piece of artwork to $100, that meant every time it resold, she got $10. When it went up to $1,000, and then every time it resold, she got $100. There are artists that are becoming millionaires overnight by creating work on the blockchain that allows them to be able to benefit not only on the first part of their work, but also on every secondary transaction. And guess what? You're to that traditional gallery model where you're having to fight your way into a gallery and the gallery is going to take 50%, sometimes more. You can sell your artwork directly to an audience that wants to engage with you. And you have no middleman whatsoever other than a small marketplace fee for wherever you're selling your NFTs. That is what the blockchain can do. So when we think of the legal considerations of the smart contract, coming back to the boring law side of this, it's going to outline, or it needs to outline, everything you would do in a normal contract. What are the obligations of each party? What is the approval of parties with respect to the final product? Who owns the copyright, right, of the NFT or the piece of artwork? How do you split up your profits? What is your secondary fee? Is it 10%? Is it 5%? Is it 25%? You get to choose. Your choice may affect how many resales you get, but you get to choose. You are in control of that process across the board. There are some things that you need to think of as well here. Any contract today needs to take into consideration all the ways the world can go wrong with force majeure, right? So like pandemics, floods, war, conflict, right? Like the world right now is in a crazy place. With an NFT itself, you need to include who is responsible for each taxable event. What are the representations and warranties for each item? Indemnify yourself, disclaimers of liability, and you definitely want to say that no party is engaging in securities, right? So there is this open question we'll get into as to are NFT securities or not. This is an undecided question by the SEC right now. The good thing is that the vast majority of NFTs under most legal experts' opinions are not securities, minus a few minute examples like fractionalization of ownership, which we'll get to. So let's talk about the intellectual property considerations of NFTs. You might recognize this from Pulp Fiction. So we're going to start with this NFT from, oh man, it skipped ahead a whole slide. There was a whole slide where I was going to ask you how much this NFT was worth. So this is an NFT from LeBron James. You could have bought it in a pack of cards in 2020 for $10 that today is worth $375,000, right? It's nuts. So if you buy this NFT, which is a LeBron James dunk, what rights do you think that gives you? Can you take that NFT? Can you put it on a shirt? Can you take the clip and sell it to SportsCenter? Can you take the clip and put it in a movie, right? You own something. It's worth a whole lot of money. What does it give you? This is what we mean by IP considerations in regard to an NFT. So the question for any NFT is what IP rights does the buyer have? Now, this is something that is very important that most people don't think about at all with anything we buy, right? If you buy a CD, going back in time when you could buy a CD, do you own the song? Or do you have a right to listen to it? What right to listen to it? You could resell the CD, right? Because you bought it, you own a tangible thing. You don't have derivative rights, right? Ownership and IP rights are all tied to whatever that smart contract is. That's the reason why you have to review contracts. It's the very same for NFTs. So the copyright in this instance belongs to the NBA, and it cannot be reproduced without a license from the NBA. So what the NBA is saying is, hey, look, we are selling you essentially a trading card. It's a digital trading card. You have a right to collect it. You have a right to display it. You have a right to resell it within the ecosystem that they've created. But you do not have any derivative rights outside of that. So what happens if you mess around and you try to do that? You try to do things you can't do. Well, your $375,000 NFT that is so valuable. Oh, no, come back, please. Well, the NBA could literally delete your NFT. Your collectible that's worth $375,000 can be gone in a second. You essentially are operating a little bit like having a license to it. It's kind of like if you go to Amazon and they say, do you want to buy a movie? And you go and you buy it. Guess what? You actually don't own the movie. You own a license to view it forever. So with NFTs whatsoever, you need to take into consideration, what are you actually buying? Are you buying ownership? Are you buying derivative rights? Are you buying just the ability to collect? All these things have to be specified. So Quentin Tarantino, for example, had this idea where he is a film director, artist, right? Has his reserved artistic rights to the films he's made. So he said, I want to do NFTs from Pulp Fiction of scenes that were not in the movie that were never released. So he decided to release 6 NFTs of unseen shots from this film. And then, well, the studio, Miramax, sued him. Said, that's not the rights that we gave you. Right? When those rights were given, we didn't take into consideration NFTs at all. You don't have the right to do that. So for any holder of IP, past IP, right, there is a battle that is being waged between if you had reserved rights, what do those reserved rights give you? Do they include NFTs? Do they not include NFTs? What are the rights that are there? And this is occurring in pretty much every area of IP that you can imagine.
So that decided upon, they were able to take it back?
It is not decided, is being disputed. This is one of the risks with being in an emerging technology. When you're in emerging technology, everything is new, everything is being fought over, none of the law is decided. The big thing to note here is that NFTs pose significant intellectual property questions. So, what IP rights are transferred in a sale of an NFT? If you are creating the NFT, you have the responsibility of, in your smart contract, outlining the rights you want to give. You have to pay attention to that. NFTs themselves in the smart contracts contain metadata that describe the corresponding assets they are attached to. So for example, I was at the Basquiat NFT release in Miami at Basel. This photo came from his best friend that took this photo back in the late 70s, early 80s. The friend decided to license this photo and work with a new artist to be able to create this piece of art and then sell this. And the friend's IP rights were, I took the photo, I am the owner of that photo, and I'm going to create and sell an NFT from it. So that all has to be outlined, right? So like any contract, an issuer has to obtain content from a creator, and they only receive the rights that such creator assigns. Nothing is new here. So let's talk about some of the risks of IP that can pop up with NFTs. The first is trademark infringement, and this is rife with NFTs. So an unlicensed party mints NFTs linked to an asset without the asset owner's permission, and then advertises and sells that asset. So for example, you see a piece of artwork in this building. You take a photo of that artwork. You then decide to create 10,000 editions of that artwork and you sell it. Well, if you're not the artist, right, you have done some illegal shit. Excuse the French. Am I allowed to cuss here, Renee? Do I need to? Okay. I learned from Mark, so. So let me give you an example of a lawsuit that's being fought. This shoe company has a vault, a literal vault of high-end shoes, where these shoes themselves could be worth tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece. Okay? They have created NFTs of these shoes. And if you want to buy the shoe or invest in the shoe, you are going to buy the NFT of a photo of that shoe. Okay? So let's say you buy the shoe itself. You have a digital NFT, and that NFT is supposed to be representative of your ownership of that shoe. Well, Nike has filed a lawsuit for trademark infringement, false designation of origin, trademark dilution, and a whole lot of other stuff. We're going to get into some of the legalese here. The question is, are StockX's NFTs an extension of its normal reselling process? Because you are allowed to buy and resell items. Or are the NFTs actually their own product? Or are they a separate product outside of the shoe itself? So Nike, I'm going to turn here my back to you guys, has said, StockX almost exclusively used Nike's marks to launch its Vault NFTs because it knew that doing so would garner attention, drive sales, and confuse customers into believing that Nike collaborated with StockX on the Vault NFTs. StockX is using Nike's trademarks to market, promote, and attract potential purchasers. Essentially, no one can tell that Nike's not actually agreeing with this or doing it. The response, because there's always one. Our Vault NFTs depict and represent proof of ownership of physical goods stored in our vault that customers can trade on our platform. StockX Vault NFTs are not digital or virtual sneakers. We do not state or imply that our vault NFTs are associated with, sponsored by, or officially connected to any third-party brand. And StockX undoubtedly has the right to provide our customers with this new and innovative approach to trading current culture products, and we plan to vigorously defend our position. This is an open legal question. It has not been resolved, right? But if I digitally put my phone for sale as an NFT, see anything on there other than a photo of my wife? No, we're good. And I take a photo of this phone, and I offer you the ability to buy an NFT of this phone, and then you have an ownership of this. Are you infringing on Apple's rights? Yes or no? We don't know yet, right? That's the question that's being fought. There's also serious copyright considerations here. Man, the technology does funky things. Under US copyright law, the copyright holder, absent a license, is the only individual with authority to transform the original work into an NFT. So if you are Apple, you are the only one that has the right, theoretically, to be able to make NFTs of Apple products, right? Under 17 U.S.C. Section 204, transfer of copyright ownership is not valid unless an instrument of conveyance or a note or memorandum of the transfer is in writing and signed by the owner of the rights. Interestingly enough, creating an NFT in and of itself could be protected by copyright. So there's a whole lot of infringement questions here, a whole lot. So there's a question of infringement of reproduction rights and infringement of the communication right. So copyright infringement, whole bunch of legalese. I know there's only like 3 lawyers in the room, so I'm just going to apologize now. This is why being a lawyer, sometimes you're like, yeah, it's pretty boring. Only limited personal, non-commercial use and resale rights in the NFT are granted, and you have no right to license, commercially exploit, reproduce, distribute, prepare derivative works, publicly perform, and publicly display the NFT or the music of the artwork therein. So for example, the biggest thing to note here is kind of going back to the LeBron James moment. If you were to look at the smart contract, the NBA will tell you, hey, you're buying a collectible, we're not giving you any other rights, okay? We're giving you the right to one thing, nothing else. And if you do anything else, you have violated our copyright. So generally, the sale of an NFT does not transfer copyrights in works. The leading cryptographer, legal expert, calls NFTs simply a cryptographically signed receipt that you own a unique version of a work. It gives no derivative rights whatsoever. But there's some interesting hypotheticals here. Artist creates a $1 million painting and then creates one digital NFT of the painting to serve as a receipt of both the provenance and ownership history of a painting, right? So I have my real painting, and then I have my NFT of the painting. Right now, the person selling it for the first time has linked these items together. But what if somebody that rebuys this item the second or third time decides to separate those two things? To say, I'm going to hold on to the original ownership of the physical painting, but I'm now going to sell the NFT as a separate product to where it's not a receipt anymore, but it's instead a digital edition of something. Is that copyright infringement? No one knows. Another example. This is how nuts this world is. This funky piece of art is called Invisible Friends. Invisible Friends, which is a generative set of art, has done over $50 million in sales in the last 2 weeks. Okay? Invisible Friends is a little bit different than most NFTs. They have given you, if you buy an invisible friend and you're the holder of it, you have rights to do whatever you want with it. You could create hats, mugs, do a video of it online, you get it all, right? So let's just say that Mark Upton decides to spend $22,000 of Ethereum to buy this invisible friend NFT. All right. Mark has been granted commercial rights to his NFT by the creators, and Mark decides to make this NFT his Twitter photo and his Discord photo. All right. And what's your name, ma'am?
Jerry.
What is it?
Jerry.
Jerry. So let's say Jerry sees Mark's Twitter photo, and she goes, man, I like that photo. I'm going to right click it and save it. And then you're going to make it your Twitter photo. Have you just violated Mark's copyright ownership of this NFT? Have you committed copy fraud simply by making it your profile photo? Simply by copying it, right? What if you go a step further? What if you take that NFT and you decide to launch a whole set of t-shirts with it? Have you committed copy fraud? Have you violated Mark's ownership rights in this NFT? See, one of the things that's being joked about a lot about NFTs is like, I don't get it. You can just right click and save it all. I don't get why people are buying it.
Is it possible in the code that the original owner still is getting a portion of that sale of any t-shirt?
So the problem is, if it was coming from the original contract, maybe, but if you saw the photo online and you copied and downloaded it, and you don't have any rights, it's kind of like you walking up to a piece of artwork in this building, taking a photo of it and saying, like, I'm going to make a shirt or a hoodie. So as much as people joke about like, I don't get it, I can just right click, save as, you're a collectible, what people don't understand is that there are legal rights associated with the ownership of some of these items. So is that copy fraud? It hasn't been decided, but most legal experts would say absolutely. We 100% think that rights have been infringed.
A bunch of pictures that are on the internet and social media would be.
Correct. Yep, 100%.
What was the question? And then they're sending right now FedEx on Facebook says that violation.
Yeah, there are numerous sites that are trying to make fun of NFTs and saying, all right, great, we're going to copy all of them. Now I own the NFT. It's like, no, you made a copy. There's no traceable ownership of this on the blockchain, right? The whole point of that transaction is being able to trace it from beginning to end. You actually don't own it. Someone else does, and they spent money to do it. So it's something to be aware of.
So that's like every meme that's out there, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Other legal considerations to be aware of. Are NFTs securities? If they're securities, there's a whole bunch of SEC stuff you got to do. Well, the SEC has defined digital assets as an asset that is issued and transferred using distributed ledger or blockchain technology. So for example, an example of a security would be if I go to Coinbase on my phone and I purchase Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a fungible token, unlike NFTs, non-fungible. By fungible, what it means is that I can trade you, Jira, or I can sell you my Bitcoin. You could sell me Bitcoin back. And because they're fungible, we can trade these items, but we can't distinguish them, right? They are the same. They are like dollars. They are currency. So most legal experts would say that the SEC has virtual currencies as a security, but NFTs in most instances are not. A digital asset may in certain instances be deemed a security under the federal securities law while not defined. That is messing up. Let's skip ahead. Hopefully the slide comes out right. So NFTs themselves don't function as traditional securities and they don't clearly fit under the law. I'll say this, it's more that it's not clear than it's a clear yes or no, right? This is a very gray area. Some of the reasons why it's not so clear that NFTs can function as securities is because one, they're not fungible, they are distinguishable, they are a unique item of ownership, they can function as a receipt, meaning they're not an item of value in and of itself. Sometimes they're just representing your ownership in something in the real world. And an NFT itself can have a whole bunch of utility to it. For example, a ticket to Coachella. Is a ticket to Coachella a security? Not under traditional law. Is a digital version of a ticket a security? Right? These are some of the questions that are being battled with. One thing to note here, the federal government has done a terrible job. Shocking. A terrible job in providing guidance or clarity around NFTs, blockchain, crypto, whatsoever. They literally just issued a directive this week under the Biden administration to basically put together a committee to investigate these things more. Still is going to take years. States have done a terrible job because most states literally don't understand any of this technology, right? And so the biggest companies in this space are all going directly to the SEC and state governments saying, we just want clarity, right? We just want you to outline what is a security, what isn't security, what is an asset, what isn't an asset. How should we consider NFTs? The leading state of all states out of the blue is Wyoming. Wyoming has said we are going to try to take the lead in providing clarity around cryptocurrency and blockchain law. And there are a lot of companies that are relocating their headquarters to Wyoming because they want that transparency. This is an example of Wyoming being the first state to enact blockchain enabling laws and to clarify literally what they consider to be digital assets and digital securities. No other state has done this. So while the SEC still hasn't published guidance on what an NFT is a security, they have noted that the main issue is whether a purchaser has a reasonable expectation on financial returns derived from the efforts of others, right? So like if you're investing into something, why do you invest in it? You invest in it because you think you're going to get a return, right? Well, if you buy a ticket to Coachella that's a digital representation of an NFT, does that fall under this definition? Most likely not, right? So if an NFT relates to an existing asset and is marketed as a collectible with a public assurance of authenticity on the blockchain, it should hopefully not be deemed a security. If it is, somebody screwed up. If an NFT promises a return on investment from the efforts of others, it could be deemed a security. However, oh, hell. The SEC has noted that price appreciation resulting solely from external market forces, such as general inflationary trends or the economy, impacting the supply and demand from an underlying asset generally is not considered profit under the Howey test. Meaning that, let's say you buy an NFT, if all of a sudden things go nuts outside of your control, it doesn't necessarily turn that into a security just because of inflation. So if an NFT is a security, the platform that is facilitating the sale and trading may have to register as an exchange with the SEC. That is the big thing to note. This is a very boring definition of what an exchange is. I'm not going to read it to you, unless someone wants me to. Okay, cool. Other questions. Are NFTs subject to federal anti-money laundering laws? Actually, reason to think about this as well. Not just money laundering, but also other considerations that are similar. When the United States and like every country in the world cut Russia off from SWIFT and from typical banking exchanges like Goldman Sachs and others, there have been tens of thousands of Russians that have attempted to create crypto accounts and to transfer all of their assets into a crypto wallet as a way of getting their money out and being able to exchange it, right? This is in direct opposition to what the United States, the European Union, and others are trying to prevent, right? They're trying to say, like, you can't use our systems and we're not going to allow this. This is where anti-money laundering is a big issue and similar considerations of know your customer, right? We often will say certain people are allowed to transact in certain ways and other people aren't. Also, this is kind of counter to the whole reason blockchain exists, this notion of a decentralized system, like DeFi, what that means. They're trying to say like, hey, look, we don't want to have to deal with any government. We want to be able to do what we want to do. Governments obviously have a problem with this. This is something to note. So the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which sounds like a made-up group in a movie, is the Bureau of the U.S. Department of Treasury with regulatory authority over the financial system to combat money laundering under the Bank Secrecy Act and other related laws. So the thing to note here is that to date, this organization has not issued guidance over any specific NFTs, but it has published guidance generally about how these organizations relate to virtual currencies that could apply to NFTs. Virtual currencies being Bitcoin, Ethereum, those, right? So one question is whether this organization regards NFTs as the value that substitutes for currency. If NFTs are considered substitutes for currency, then this organization could consider NFTs to be subject to these regulations. This is potentially a really big deal. Imagine you're the Russian government, right, who is trying to be punished by the world, and they're trying to figure out, how do we get our money out? So imagine the Russian government spends and buys $100 million worth of those invisible friends. And then they sell those invisible friends to someone else. They've essentially laundered their money out through the blockchain, right? This is the problem. This is why know your customer, being able to verify who the owner is through a driver's license or some type of a legal document, is so important to knowing who you're selling your NFTs to, because we're trying to prevent bad actors, terrorists, bad governments from using this technology to get around the legal systems we have in place.
Question.
Please.
Just using it for granted,
Mhm.
that happens with that example. There is no way to go back, for example, and exclude Russia from purchasing.
If it's already happened, if it's already happened, it would be very difficult to issue back the contract.
Can you add one or?
So it's possible, based around the way the smart contract is written, to have an ability to try to call back the transaction. It's just difficult to do so. What should happen in regards to an NFT is, if you are trying to buy a NFT, the marketplace you're buying it from should require legally the buyer of the NFT to submit a copy of a driver's license, a passport, some type of a verification check through KYC to make sure that whoever is buying this legally has the right to buy it. Right? Yes, sir.
KYC.
So there are what marketplaces do typically is they contract with a KYC company that is taking on that legal responsibility of verification of the passport, the driver's license, the legal document. And those KYC companies are required to work under SEC rules, FinCEN rules, and others. And it's a very, very strict process. There are some people, though, some marketplaces and others, that are going to places like Puerto Rico trying to skirt laws who are not implementing KYC. That is really, really problematic, because you could literally be laundering money for cartels, governments, and everyone else through the blockchain. And that's what we're trying to prevent.
Some people don't do it because they just don't want to.
Well, it's the thing here, though. You have KYC, like every country sets their laws, right? The problem with the blockchain is that what if somebody sets up a marketplace in a country that doesn't have the right laws, right? So it's the same problem that can happen anywhere. You have people that try to skirt legal protections that we try to abide by. That's why whenever I go to an NFT conference, a blockchain conference, you run into sort of these like shady figures. And I'm like, oh man, why aren't you in like Puerto Rico? Right? You should be in Puerto Rico. Why are you in the US? And I'm like, oh God, I know what you're doing, right? It is easy in this industry to become very wealthy if you don't care about ethics and laws. But if you do, and you don't want to go to prison, you should follow sort of all these regulatory frameworks. So are NFTs subject to state laws governing virtual currency or money transmission? To date, no state has provided any type of guidance on this at all. So the industry, as we've talked about, is rife with fraud. It is very problematic. NFT platforms should consider the administrative, technical, and physical safeguards that are necessary to run their platform securely, legally, and safely. There are so many platforms that get hacked. There's so much hacking here. A platform that Mark Cuban invested in last fall decided to launch their smart contracts without doing any external third-party audits of the actual code. Remember how I started the conversation by talking about how everything on the blockchain is publicly accessible and there's no room to hide? Well, if you don't audit your software and you have a loophole, you're in like really, really deep shit. And what I mean by that is that investment by Mark Cuban, 2 weeks after, had $270 million hacked away. Every day I wake up and there is an NFT project that has been hacked, phished, and lost hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, right? So if you're gonna be in this business, like we are, right? I work with a variety of third-party auditors that go through our code and verify that, hey, look, this has been done right, or you need to change this. And if you're not doing that, there is an open question of, are you being negligent, right? Because you're taking money from people, potentially a lot of money. So what is your duty? There's also this question potentially of false advertising. So some people have said that like, it's not clear, man, that when I buy my LeBron James NFT, I actually don't own the NFT, right? Like, it's not clear, I can't turn it into a t-shirt. I thought I bought it, right? It's kind of the same argument that was made about CDs. You'll notice that if you open a CD and the little booklet with the lyrics, it's also outlining, it's like, you have a right to listen to the CD. You don't actually own the copyright to it, right? Renee, how am I doing on time? Oh, cool, perfect. Other things to think about, estate planning considerations and the need for digital legacy planning. So, do y'all know how you log into a crypto wallet? Okay. There is both hot wallets and cold wallets. The need to be able to keep your password secure to this is incredibly critical because there's no ability to reset a password for a crypto wallet. No ability to. If you share your password with anyone, they can come in and take everything you have. So there are horror stories of people that have a hard drive that is a cold wallet, but inside that hard drive is $200 to $300 million of Bitcoin. And they forgot the password and they can't get it. So think of this consideration. Let's say the ghost of my Cajun grandmother was still alive. And let's say my grandma had bought 3 invisible prints, right? The value of those when she bought them, let's say, was $10,000, and today they're $100,000. And my grandmother surely passes away, right? Serious legal planning needs to be put into place of, well, how does she pass those down, right? How do you securely pass down that password? Because if she did it before her death, anyone can log in and take those assets instantly, right? There is a very complicated, messy system. We don't have rules in place here, and it's going to have to be figured out. And actually, perfect timing. That is my last slide. So I'd love to answer any questions anyone has, and thank you so much, Renee and Mark, you're the man. It's great to see everyone. Also, because my marketing team makes me do this, I have to take a photo with everyone.
Is there anyone who's doing it really well right now, collecting or selling or?
Yeah, I think that the best company in the world is the company that created NFTs. It's a company called Dapper Labs. Dapper Labs, D-A-P-P-E-R L-A-B-S. They are the most secure. They have every permission you would need. And they're working with organizations like the NBA and the NFL to do things the right way.
They're anyways been doing it really unfairly or unfair.
Everyone that's setting up NFT companies in countries that don't have laws on this intentionally.
Now,
No, go.
just the whole idea when you asked about crypto wallets,
Mhm.
I accidentally got one. Really good. Coin something.
Sure.
And, when I got to the part, it's like, attach your checking account, I said, oh, I need to. But how popular is it? And I mean, if you're a festival and you want to use,
Mhm.
that are presenting NFT, you would have to go to a company like yours to write the smart contract, or how does that happen?
Yeah, so there are NFT companies popping up in each industry. So you would want to go to an NFT ticketing company. And you would want to work with them to be able to use their software to be able to do something like this. And so essentially, for my work, I work directly with museums, right? That is our client base. If you have history, we work with you. There are examples of that across almost every industry, but it's very important to vet and verify the company you're working with is a good company, right? Unfortunately right now, most people in this industry, be very careful. There's a lot of bad actors in general in this industry. Blockchains, like.
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
I'll try to make it quick. So attorneys draw up the contracts, or can anybody draw up contracts?
It's just like the real world. Anyone can draw up a contract, but it doesn't necessarily make it a good idea, right? Like you can draw up a contract, but you can draw it up in a way where it actually doesn't do the things you want it to do or protect you. So I always advise working with an attorney when you're dealing with contracts.
Okay, once an object has an NFT on, can you take it off?
Take it off the blockchain itself.
Can you take that NFT stamp or whatever? I mean, you have a picture and then you make an NFT of it.
Mhm.
And so that it's together, the picture and the NFT is one. Can you separate the NFT from it later on?
That's one of those open questions about whether or not that you technically can. The question is legally, can you?
Okay, then the small fee for the market versus, paying.
The gallery owner.
Yeah, how much are the fees?
Depends on each marketplace, NFT marketplace. If you're an OpenSea, you're taking 2.5%. If you are a more curated marketplace, like a Nifty Gateway or a Super Rare, it might be 10%, 12%.
Okay. Then who creates the NFT? The company, the NFT company?
So,
Like
one
Apple Labs?
one thing to note, to be very clear, is that when you sell an NFT, a couple of things happen. You have your smart contract, which is that ledger of the transaction, right? That item, that smart contract is pointing to a URL that is displaying whatever the NFT is. It could be a video, could be a photo, could be a piece of artwork. So we say, like, what is the NFT? You have both the artwork, something is representing,
Yes.
and you have also the record of the transaction itself. So in terms of creating the NFT, I generally think of it from the artist perspective. The artist is creating the piece of artwork they want to sell as an NFT, but the marketplace is the one that's actually taking it from a photo and putting it on the blockchain and minting it to become a NFT. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, just a few more.
Please.
The KYC companies, who are, give me a couple of good names.
Oh, hell. I don't have any off the top of my head, but if you were to Google them, you would find them immediately.
Then, well, where can I learn more about the topic? I mean, do they have 3-day seminars? You talked about conferences. I mean, I'm not ready for a conference.
Yeah, I wouldn't even recommend going to a conference. It's
mean,
just a lot of tech bros.
Yeah, I'd like to, maybe do a month course or something.
Of
just to-
course.
Yeah.
You know, to be frank, it's such a new area that every day something wakes up and changes. I would just start doing an RSS search every day, have a feed come in of articles around the space. Some of the biggest mainstream companies are coming in, like Coinbase and others, and they're providing a lot of education and research videos on their website.
I have Coinbase, but I'm too scared to open the wallet. I have the password, but I don't, I know it's going up in value, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, I mean,
It's weird.
you're kind of defining the notion of like holding just for different reasons, so it's good.
Yeah, so far it's good. Okay, well, what's your phone number?
I can give you my email. How about that?
Okay, yeah,
I can give you my email. So it's, yeah,
Sorry,
it's.
I'm old, I ask phone numbers.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, what's your email?
Yeah, it's chris@passitdown.com.
Chris at what?
Pass, P-A-S-S,
Okay,
I-T,
okay,
D-O-W-N
okay.
.com.
I really do have one more question. Say you have an art collection. Can you make NFTs off of this art collection?
Were you the artist?
No,
When you bought the art, were you given the rights to do NFTs with it?
there was no such thing as an NFT.
Is the art is it out of protection from copyright or trademark? Like how old is the art?
Some of it's like mid 1800s.
Well, if it's in the 1800s, it is going to be considered in the public domain. So technically anyone could make NFTs of that artwork, you or anyone that has seen it. But if it's in the 1800s, right, you're past your legal protections for copyrights and trademarks. And the entire reason we have public domain laws is we want artwork to go into the public domain, and then we want transformation to take place of that work itself.
Okay.
So technically, this may scary or not, like you plus anyone in the world could say like, well, we have the rights to it because no one can own it.
Okay, well, what is that drop dead date? 100 years old?
Oh, hell, it depends on when things were filed and where, just depends. Yeah, you'd have to talk with an IP attorney, which I am not. Yes, sir.
One of the slides you had quotes, you referred to, I think it was in you referred to it as moments.
Yep.
What,
They call NFTs that you're buying a moment from NBA history. That's the way they refer to it.
Explain that, like what someone's collecting that LeBron James thing and they're bring all their friends over. Hey, look what I-
Well, what most people don't know, right, is that you not only can display it on your phone or on a computer, but there are entire hardware companies like Mural or Token Frame, where you can have a large digital frame tied to your crypto wallet. You can display this in your home. This is also a really big deal though for exhibitions, just like the space we're in. You couldn't turn a corner at Basel this year without seeing 8 huge ass screens all displaying NFTs in an exhibition setting. And also you can display NFTs in metaverse spaces, so digital environments that you can walk in with a VR headset, and you can not only see the NFT, you can buy it directly there.
Can you make yourself an NFT like you?
It's possible.
Samsung TV that turns into a picture. You can have it.
Samsung is working heavily in this space to allow you to log in with a wallet address to display your NFTs.
So like a fundraiser for a museum
Mm-hmm.
would be an artist donate their work.
Mm-hmm.
And then the museum could sell 2,000 NFTs.
Yep.
That could be shown in your home.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so for example, one of my clients is the Universal Hip Hop Museum. It's one of the most important museums being built in the world right now in the Bronx. That museum won't physically open, the full museum, for 2 years, right? But we'll end up doing 10,000 editions of an NFT inspired by the genesis of hip hop. And the NFT itself will not only be something you can digitally display, right? It's like a sense of ownership and collectability, but it will also include the ability to have utility, like a ticket to the museum when it opens or a special event, things like that.
I didn't understand a lot of it, but I understand the usability
See, that's the cool thing in my industry of what we're doing. Makes a lot of sense compared to some of the crazy things out there.
Yeah.
It's a great fundraising tool for people to understand it, but that's the other thing too. So you're selling tickets to your event this way, what if you want to give a ticket to your grandma? I mean, how confused will that make you?
It would be very confusing. There is a really good company called Relic Ticketing that is doing ticketing for festivals specifically. That is trying to make all this easy. It's all run on the blockchain without looking like it's on the blockchain.
So, Chris, first of all, raise your hand if your mind is blown.
Sorry,
Okay.
my bad.
We do have one more session of the day, so we have to bring this to a close, but, we really want to welcome you to come back and do lots of webinars or
Cool.
seminars for us.
Yeah,
We
Chris.
appreciate it.
Cool.
And thanks so much.
Thank you. And I got to run. Thank you so much. So I appreciate it.
Is there anybody in that region? That would help somebody like me. They actually do NFTs or that's right. That's okay. My name is you too. I gotta go to the session. So yeah, man. I really would like to be able to go to a class for, say, a month and really understand. But I would like to meet with someone and let them come see my house, various things, and tell me, what can I make?
Okay, guys, 2:45 is our next session. We have the Louisiana Music Trail in here, I believe, and then there are two more sessions upstairs, last ones of the day.
Yeah, well, and so is this presentation, oops,
I'm serious. This is pathetic. That's me too.
Oh, no.
But I don't know. I'm so scared and I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to take it out. I don't know what to do.
Like you are, but you don't know anything.
No, it's not that. But my point, I didn't like it because I was too scared. I was just too scared. I'm so scared of all this technology. That's why. Because I was like, anything else to do with it anymore, but yeah, trying to put my place in dementia facility. Jesus, Jerry, I've been like, I have to pull myself out of the depths of it. It was terrible. But I'm on the alley. But I want to live a bit longer. Just